Opposing Gloves here, and this is the 50-second Kontakt from the ground up tutorial series and video in the tutorial series. And we're going to cover the last effect, the AET filter, and it escapes me now what it is actually called. But what it allows you to do, and it's another way to solve a problem in the mapping editor, which is if you have multiple groups open at a given time, and they have several samples going on at the same time. So if we were to go to our hard mallets group, we have two levels. I have a high velocity and a low one. And they actually sound pretty good, but occasionally you'll run into problems with maybe you have like 12 velocity levels. Well, holy cow, what are you going to do? Well, it's pretty simple. You simply select them all and you can create a layer. So what does that mean? So for the AET, what it does is it'll morph between these levels to hopefully solve some of these problems. And you may want it to be rather subtle, but it can create, the reason I'm covering this now is it can create some extraordinarily interesting textures. And now it's important that this is an effect that can only exist on the group level because it interacts with zones in a group. So we can select a group of things, go to our edit and create an AET Morph layer. And as you can see, we have some things right here, tonal, because our samples have a tonal quality to them. They are meant to be played as tonal. And you can actually shift the key if they are the wrong note or they're relative to the root key. We're going to name this layer. This is very important. So we're going to name it the yup layer just because. All right, we can name it loud. Loud would make more sense. And smoothing has to do with how it merges between the volume envelopes. We'll leave it at 0.5, but that's what that does. And then you have the analysis range. So what parts are going to use to shift between the levels? These have really long decay times, okay? Because that's just the way I recorded to try and keep the most natural feel possible. So we're going to go ahead and let it cut off right here. If you really wanted to, you could include the rest of the decay. Not really necessary. The attack is the part that really matters. So we could even bring it in more if we wanted. And then the number of zones, and that is correct. So we'll click OK. Oh, it already belongs to a morph layer. Well, I've already created it. You do the same thing for a soft layer. Once you have that, then you would come and you would click Open AET Morph Map Editor. Now you could select and automatically add an AET velocity morph, but if you do this, you can add, so you can name something, so you name it that layer. And this will now be added when we click add. So now we have that layer as our map. So I already have one. It's called basic, and they have that layer. So with a velocity map, so an articulation morph, so if it's morphing between samples like that, that's with multiple layers. And the difference is just single layer versus multiple layers. And you create your map, and that's pretty much all it is. And you can add your map, and you're pretty much done at that point. So now to create a new that layer, to create our new map, you see it keeps telling me it's angry at me right now. It's yelling. And what's the matter is articulation requires more than one layer, and I only have one. So if you select them all, you can actually just add them all to one group, and it will automatically morph between them anyways. So there's that option. And once you have all that jazz set up there, and you have all your layers and you've combined them into a map, so you create so you can have a whole bunch of group layers, and then you can map them all into one giant map. And you can take that map and you can load it down here. So we have that layer in basic. I'm going to use basic, and when we hit our notes, we'll notice that our velocity sensitivities are set to these ranges, and it automatically detects them. And as we turn our morph down and we click some notes, especially in the upper range, we're going to start getting the morphs between the two. So that can be really cool, and you get some really interesting effects that way. You can control the amount, so maybe you don't want it as hardcore. And it's displayed right here. And you can control the output. This is just a visual representation of what it's morphing between. And that's pretty much it. Now, a neat thing about the morphing is you can actually modulate it. You can add a modulator. We could add an LFO. We're going to cover this more in detail as we get into the modules. But you can add a sine wave, and you can target the morph setting. So that is pretty cool. You can modulate between the morphs. So I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. And have a blessed day.